Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming along to this induction into our growing hall of fame. We did a couple of inductions last week of Andre Voronstov and Stephanie Millwall, and two thoroughly deserving inductees. This morning we have someone equally deserving, outstanding candidate, a gentleman who is at the very pinnacle of his sport as an athlete, who is now working at the cutting edge of British sport as a coach developer, incredibly wise and insightful coach developer. And in addition to that, a gentleman who has actually made an enormous contribution to many people within the department. He's led our coach development sessions, he's done a lot of mentoring one-to-one with our coaches. So a lot of people, he's well known to a lot of staff around the SBR, and particularly delighted that our Vice-Chancellor Professor Ian White is going to do the honour of making the formal induction of Nigel Redman. So I invite Ian to come to the podium to do the formal induction.
Thank you, Stephen, and may I stress at the outset that it's very humbling actually for me to be here to mark a most wonderful person, because actually at the university we really are honoured to know and work with Nigel Redman. In addition to all his amazing achievements, he's an enduring thirst for new knowledge and a willingness to support others to achieve success. As I've said, of course, he's tasted significant success himself as a renowned rugby player, and more recently as a consultant and people developer across many sports and organisations, not just our own, where his connections go back through a history of 3 University of Bath directors of sport. As a rugby player, Nigel was described in an interview for Bath Rugby as legendary. He made 349 appearances for Bath and played an integral role in all 17 of Bath's trophy-winning sides, including the famous European Cup win. At 6'3", I'm getting used to looking up all the time I come into this building, but particularly this morning. And having been born in Cardiff, Nigel's success as an England lock forward may not have been entirely predictable. And yet, in 1994, he was named England Player of the Year and one of the top 5 most influential players in the world. He made his international debut in November '84 and played his last game for England in July 1997, both games against Australia. I'm sure that those games must have come back to him as the match was being played on Saturday. Indeed, having been a member of the World Cup teams in 1987 and again in 1991, he must know exactly how the England team is feeling now. As well as playing for club and country, he's also a member of Martin Johnson's victorious British and Irish Lions in South Africa in 1997, captaining the team on 2 occasions, and a member of the highly prestigious Barbarians. A survey carried out in 2013 by MRM Solutions found that the average career length for a professional rugby player was 7 years. Nigel far exceeded this, with a 13-year international and 16-year Bath rugby career. His influence, of course, has extended beyond the world of rugby. Since his retirement in 1999, Nigel has made his living in the field of elite performance in sport and business. He has had a significant impact on British swimming as a coach-educator, contributing to the great medal success at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games, and he's now working towards Tokyo 2020 as British Swimming's Head of Performance Team Development. He is also part of the UK Sport Elite Coaching Apprenticeship Programme delivery team and a mentor and facilitator of the Premier League Football Elite Coach Apprenticeship Scheme, among many other roles. Team Bath family also knows and celebrates Nigel for his creative thinking and his passionate guidance and mentoring of others. On a voluntary basis, he led inspirational CPD sessions for our coaches for several years and continues to make himself available to our coaches for one-to-one mentoring session. We're so grateful to you. It's therefore without hesitation and with very great pleasure that I have the honour of inducting Nigel Redman into our University Hall of Fame for Sport. Please accept.
Thank everyone for coming, particularly my family. I've taken time out of work, out of school. This is just one, my daughter Connie who's at uni today. This is for me very humbling as well because I first came to Bath University in 1983. It wasn't a journey up here that I was expecting. I just joined Bath, I was 18 years old, and the captain of Bath at the time was a gentleman called Roger Sporrell, who used to own the Ireland Club, which is now down, commonly known as Boll and affectionately known as Boll Island. It was the second week of training, and Roger said, "We're down at the rec." I was keen to make an impression. And Roger looked at the squad and said, "I've got two bits of news. The first bit is we're not training at the rec today." He said the second bit is we're training at the uni. Oh, and he said there's a third bit of news. He said we're running up there. Now, I didn't know where the university was, so I was really, really enthusiastic. There was a group of older players who weren't quite as enthusiastic as I was. We started running, the older players stayed behind. One of the older players was a gentleman called Gareth Chilcott. Gareth was a prop forward. Gareth was a lovely and very violent man. And Gareth was also the best man at our wedding. And this group of elderly rugby players. So I set off, following on, following, it got further and further from the front. It was the only time in my life, I think, where my chronological age of 18 actually matched my weight in stones, and I wasn't particularly fit. And so the distance became further and further. But I thought Gareth and this group of old men would be behind me, until I heard the beeping of horn. Gareth was a lumberjack, and he had this old Hitachi sort of Hilux flatbed truck, and Gareth at the wheel beeping his horn with a van load of older players behind, sort of stopping and shouting, "Do you want to get in?" And I thought, no, if I get in now, this will define me. So I thought, no, I'll just take my time. And I managed to get up here, we trained, and for those people who don't know, we would be stood in the middle of a rugby pitch now if it wasn't for one of the other Hall of Famers, Jed Roddy, and the team here, who've done a terrific job. So that was my first visit to the rugby, from the rugby club up here. And I've just watched this place grow from the Founders Hall and the Founders Swimming Pool, where I used to be thrown out by the founder members on a Sunday morning, because they always like to swim alone, to watching the place grow with the people, in particular the people, many of which are already in the Hall of Fame, people like Tom Hudson, Jed Roddy. And even now, I think it's unique when you can come to the university and you can sit having a coffee, and there's toddlers eating their sort of cheesy dips on one table and Olympians on another, surrounded by staff, surrounded by good people. And I think that's really something which defines this place, is its people. And the fact that we all recognise them in the Hall of Fame, I think, is something which is unique. So just to finish, again, a big thank you from me. I'm very humbled to be in the Hall of Friends as much as the Hall of Fame. And the other thing is for people, particularly staff, who have probably seen me in the past as some sort of big, overweight bloke who sweats a lot on a bike, which I'm normally downstairs in the gym. If you do see me in the coffee shop, I am grumpy looking. I'm grumpy by nature. I look grumpy by nature, but actually I've got a warm heart and a big smile on the inside. If you do fancy a chat and a cup of coffee, please come up and say hello. I'll be only too happy to spend some time with you. Once again, thank you very much for coming along, and I'm looking forward to seeing where I am. Will I be outward facing, or will I be adopting the position that I had at school, which is just at the back facing the wall? I don't know. I'll leave that to you, Steve. Once again, thank you very much for this wonderful honour.
Thank you, Nigel. Greg and Caroline said you'll be in the second row, which seems to be apt in terms of position in the Hall of Fame. Thank you all for coming along this morning and being part of this induction. The formal part of it is now closed, but I think you got an idea from Nigel's speech there of how welcome we are to have him within the Hall of Fame. He really is a true friend of Team Bath and the university, and it's a very proud day. Thank you all for being part of it.